Cheers and welcome to the Local Lift. This is an episode recorded on Friday, so it turns out Jono and Cindy can both have a drink because in Jono's time zone, it is actually kind of end of day on Friday. And for Cindy, you know, she's American. She likes to start the day with a nice drink. Welcome to the Local Lift. Jono and Cindy kind of need no real introduction. They've been in the SEO game for nearly as long as I have. I have bumped into them both in very different places, from analytics conferences to Mexican conferences to basically anything and everything everywhere. But I'll let them introduce themselves and do the elevator pitch, of course. So, Jono, do you want to go first with a quick elevator pitch of who you are today?
No, absolutely not. I want Cindy to go first.
I'll go first. All right.
Go for it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cindy. I will start by saying that it's just coffee spiked with just a little bit of something, just to play along because the guys did it too, and I just wanted to be cool. But I'm the CEO of Mobile Moxie, and Mobile Moxie does technical and international and all the fun SEO consulting, and we also have SEO tools, and I speak at conferences, and I love that. And I've been known for guessing things right with Google. So that's my introduction.
Nice. Yeah, I'm Jono. I'm based in the UK. I'm ostensibly a technical SEO, but I also dabble in web performance, structured data, analytics, web technology in general. I've got a background in web development. I speak JavaScript, I speak server. I speak at a bunch of conferences and events like Cindy and Gerry, which is where we tend to bump into each other. Yeah, and I'm currently, I was going to say unemployed, but I mean a consultant doing kind of like high-end technical SEO for enterprise brands, which is super fun. But previously I've worked in agencies and tool vendors and all sorts of places. So yeah, all over the place.
Fantastic. And both of you have been kind of notorious for predicting the future successfully, generally speaking. When it comes to Cindy and Jono, some of your predictions have been a little bit more interesting and entertaining, but I very much enjoyed every single time Jono's presented on what he thinks the future will be. Jono and I were actually on a podcast when ChatGPT was first coming out, and I think we both said, oh, you know, this is going to really change things in about 2 or 3 years. And it was about 3 months later when the world basically
days later, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, if you want to trust anybody's opinion in the future, that was definitely going to be Cindy's. Cindy has been a massive advocate of everything from local to how Google is kind of handling entities, right through to anything and everything. And the current one, basically, Cindy, you're sort of been talking about the way in which schema is going to die, which is great because Jono's favorite thing is schema. And that, I think, is really relevant to local. So we're going to talk about local to start with. What do you think is probably going to be the future with local, the way in which Google and AI and SGE and Gemini and everything else is kind of happening? The search results, I strongly think, are going to change rapidly. But Cindy, give us the correct prediction.
Okay. I don't remember saying anything against schema. I think schema is great, although it would be interesting to postulate like what happens without schema, or when AI can learn schema and we don't need it anymore, but we're still giving it training data. Like, this is everything that Google asks us to put in our code is training data. But in terms of local and AI, what's interesting, or the prediction that I have here, comes out of the talk that I did last year in Barbados called Word to Your Mum. And it's about Google's mum language understanding and kind of language and non-language, or understanding stuff, where I said it seems like Google is reverting to classifying queries into something they used to talk about called micro moments. And that's, I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, I want to buy. And in that talk, I had said, you know, the last 3, I want to do, I want to know, I want to buy, have all been figured out for monetization, but Google is still struggling on I want to go, which is the local monetization. I think we've seen massive changes in local in the past few weeks. So that prediction was right. Like, I was like, Google hasn't quite figured out how to monetize local really well, but they're working on it, and we see them working on it right now. So I would say that was like not the larger prediction, but that was a sub prediction that's coming true right now. And we're seeing things go further with Merchant Center. That's the I want to buy. I want to know is regular monetization in Google search results, and I want to No, go, do. Oh, do is like a media request or an entertainment request. It's all being funneled to YouTube. And YouTube just changed their side nav to make it much richer and include lots of stuff that YouTube didn't used to do, including like shopping videos and stuff like that. So they can ping pong you around in the monetization thing. But Google's monetized things in those 4 categories differently. YouTube's total monetization, Merchant Center's total monetization, maps they're working on, and the regular SERP they're working on, and they're decreasing the cost in the regular SERP by adding those filters. So Google doesn't have to work so hard to get you your great answer. It gets you a good enough answer and gives you filters so you can jump in a funnel. Sorry, that was fast.
It's all good. One of the things that I would say, though, is that you mentioned the fact that the results are coming up with a lot more of YouTube at the moment. One of the things I have spotted, because I do a lot of my searching on a mobile phone, is that TikTok seems to be massively increasing in the mobile SERPs as well. Like in the desktop, you never see it, but in the mobile SERPs, I'm not going to tell you what I've been searching for recently, but it's how to do a virtual reality game that I can't figure out. But I was shocked basically to see just how much of the top results were coming in from TikTok, which next question is TikTok a search engine?
Yeah, this is something I've been talking about specifically on the speaker tour recently, that we think about TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube and all these things as different sites and different ecosystems and different verticals and different strategies. But increasingly, we're seeing and Reddit, a whole separate ballgame. We're seeing content from those sites rank in Google for queries where they might not have historically. And now that makes things really muddy strategically, right? Your social media strategy and your strategy for creating engaging content that's designed for brand discovery and preference and recall, not conversion, is now right in there alongside your products and your services and Merchant Center and everything else. This is such a blended, complex ecosystem. And I think that's only going to increase because it's one of the few things that Google has available to it to combat scaled AI content spam and other challenges. They can just dial up the prevalence of user-generated media content from these external platforms, which have their own moderation systems and queues and defenses against that kind of stuff, which Google doesn't. And they've already kind of acknowledged that's what happened with Reddit. So we're going to see more of this sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the diversity of the SERP. I mean, one of the things that Jono likes to do in his spare time is go on Twitter and basically provoke people. He will basically go and kind of like chat to the link people and the affiliate bros and all those sort of people, and we'll just kind of like try to, what's the word for it?
Challenge them. I think it's not about teasing. It's about like we're all. And let me zoom out a bit because I push a bit, but for good reasons. I think we all play in the same pool. And the integrity and the utility of the internet is important at a human level, never mind a commercial level and an SEO level. And I find it uncomfortable that there is a subset of our industry who actively, intentionally or otherwise, damage that pool to the detriment of businesses and the human race. Right, that's quite a significant problem. So occasionally, I go on Twitter and say, "Have you thought about what you're doing and the implications of that? And are you consciously behaving this way because you think it's fine and you make some money? Okay, fine. Or have you just been misled and are you sheepling?" And that, yeah, maybe a little bit too much, but
I can edit this afterwards and put in screenshots of the tweets that you've been saying.
Nice.
Well, I'll jump in here too and say, like, I think this whole concept is fascinating, and I think Jono and I could waste a lot of time like talking about this, and no one but the two of us would care, and maybe like 2 other people in the world. But this idea that the internet is a shared resource is interesting. But from my perspective, when we talk about shared resources, all of the models we have to talk about shared resources assume a limited resource. So the tragedy of the commons and someone's ruining something that has some kind of finite limitation, but the internet is infinite, or could be. But what Google, the converse of that is what Google can crawl and index is not. And so that's where the stuff gets really interesting. But I will stop that conversation there because I know no one cares.
I actually do care. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, as a as somebody who's a digital marketer, if somebody said to me, produce more content, put it on your website, you'll get more traffic, and I can go, actually, what I can do is to ask ChatGPT to create 100 articles on any given topic and basically publish them, then all it's doing is basically recycling content that's on the web from other sources that's kind of like the original source. And I don't think that's great for the infrastructure of the internet unless it's done in an intelligent and there are ways in which people are using AI content intelligently, but there's a lot of people using it really, really badly.
Well, that's absolutely true. And I think this is part of why we're seeing some of the updates that we're seeing from Google is they, in my mind, my best guess is they are prioritizing click-through rate as a metric that they then evaluate what is getting click-through and does your stuff look like that stuff that's already getting click-through. So it's a bit of a circular logic already, but what you should know then is if someone's telling you to write more blog posts, but you do a search for the query you want to rank for and it's all TikTok videos, go do TikTok videos. Like that's what's getting click through. And you're not going to push a blue link in above those TikTok videos without loads of hard work. Take the easy path, do what Google is already rewarding.
Cindy, do you have a TikTok account?
I don't, because I already waste so much time on the internet. Like it's just another place that I would waste so much time.
I do think it's definitely worth kind of pushing. If you've got great content, and you've got great content because you've done the videos for your conference talks and other bits and pieces, I think it's a great channel. It's a great leader. It's something which actually does work for various reasons. So I'm all in favor of us as middle-aged, I'm not calling you middle-aged, let's just say more mature adults actually pushing into TikTok, which I do think that a lot of people are undervaluing at the moment. It's something which, when we first look at it, it's dodgy videos of teenagers doing silly things, and now suddenly it's learned that I like coffee. It's given me lots of coffee videos. It's given me lots of cocktail videos. It's given me really great content suddenly. And I think that if people aren't kind of using it correctly, and this also applies to local, if you're a local business, make sure that you're on TikTok because there's so much localization in it. If you do any search for, like, I'm going to Prague, if I do a search for Prague, then it knows where Prague is, that it knows these videos are attached to Prague. There's actually a little thing at the bottom which says Prague. And if you click on it, you'll get more Prague videos. And so it kind of is a cycle, which the problem now is the fact for the next 18 months, I'll get lots of Prague videos, even when I get back from Prague. So yeah, for local, I think TikTok is really, really, really important. And I do think it is kind of like a search engine, although I sort of question the fact that we ask the wrong questions almost. It's almost like, are we asking, is it a search engine? Because that is then the ownership of the SEO guy, rather than more kind of a, what's the word for it? A kind of marketing question, which is this a channel that we should use in this particular way and how we should use it? So calling things a search engine or not a search engine almost feels like the wrong approach. But yeah, sorry, I've forgotten what we're talking about. Schema, markup, local.
I just wanted to weigh in there briefly. So we got a dog about 6 months ago. I'm not on TikTok, but my wife is prolifically. And I don't think TikTok's the point, right? The point is short form video, because what happens is you find and follow creators and influencers, and you end up building brand preference and awareness in a way that you wouldn't conventionally through search, or at least that happens in a much slower and different way in search, because for many reasons, not least one of which is that brands tend not to invest in top of the funnel education and awareness content for SEO because it doesn't convert. Read into that as you will. But we got a dog, and over the course of 6 months, we have spent an inordinate amount of money. We're not Googled once. We have discovered food providers, trainers, clothing, tips and tricks, medication, 100 categories of things and types of problems, some of which were throwaway immediate purchases, some of which are long-term investments, etc. All of which has happened through Sam scrolling through TikTok, finding stuff that is on point, building those preferences and going, yes, buy now. Like, this is like short form video from trusted human curators is the future of how people not necessarily search, but discover And then search fills a very different role at a very different part of the funnel. It's probably much more transactional, etc. And we're still thinking about SEO as a channel that's designed for conversion, where we need to be publishing blog posts. Just the world's changed.
So on that point, I have started to think about TikTok. Number one, I do plan on hiring someone to cut my videos up and put them on TikTok. I just don't want like the login, because I will just waste all that time. Like not doing the videos, but just watching other stuff. Someday, maybe. But the larger point is, I think TikTok has become what Google Discover wants to be when it grows up. Because think about all the low quality articles that rank well in Google Discover that are there for the wrong reasons and not doing a good job of converting, or other than getting like a pogo stick click that's like, oh yeah, this is exactly the trash that I thought it was going to be. And then you see way more of that same kind of trash. But TikTok seems to have gotten it right. And I wonder if there's anything for SEOs to learn about that, or if there's anything for Google to learn about what TikTok is doing right.
And then also, yeah, I think last week the news came out that TikTok are incentivizing content creators to think about SEO. I don't think they're calling it SEO, but they're rewarding creators who put some keywords in and consider market demand for types of searches, etc. So they're very aware that they're competing against Google, and they're all on it. And I don't think Google has a good response other than feature more TikTok content in the search. It feels mad to not be considering it.
They have the shorts, and my guess is they'll start to auto-generate shorts from videos that are already uploaded.
Yeah.
I think you're both right there. Yeah. I mean, as you say, basically Shorts was a reaction to the fact that TikTok became so huge. Every time I do any search now, particularly something which has a, what's the word for it? A media kind of response to it. Basically, if it's I will find that there's TikTok videos and YouTube Shorts as well as TikTok. So yeah, it is huge. And I think, the more you click into them, the more Google is kind of going, oh, this is what you're interested in. And, I think I made the mistake of clicking into a few Doctor Who ones at one point. And now basically my Discover is dominated by Doctor Who, which, don't get me wrong, I'm a little bit interested in, but I kind of want a little bit more diversity in what Google wants to tell me about.
I think you'd make quite a good Doctor Who companion, actually.
Me or Cindy?
But definitely you. I think Cindy's definitely just Doctor Who, but you're definitely a companion, and I'm definitely the bad guy.
The Ginger Master.
Perfect.
But the Doctor Who stuff following you around seems like the logical replacement for the loss of third-party cookies.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good one, actually. I mean, one of the crazy parts about the internet is the fact that we want the internet to be a customized, personalized, amazing experience, but we also really, really want our privacy back again, which is kind of interesting because, I mean, both of you love your voice control devices. Both of you love your mobile phones and everything. And, the more information that we give to Google, the more it can personalize bits and pieces. But we are very aware of the fact that, our level of privacy has kind of degraded. I mean, when you go onto a lot of websites now, it doesn't just say, do you want to accept our cookies? It says, do you want to share your data with 400 providers and relevant parties? I don't think many people read that. I think it's only us kind of people that actually look at that number and go, who are those 400 people or companies? And remembering that at every company there are people, it's basically that the level of privacy that we've had over the past 20 years has been degraded to the point that actually now we kind of go, oh, what's happening? Yes, so personalization, really important. Cookies, people don't really know what they are. Nobody actually kind of knows what a cookie is when they click, yes, do you want to accept all the cookies? So I think a lot of these statements of, do you want to accept cookies, are often a little bit redundant almost. It's almost like we need to kind of know what a cookie actually is and what it does, especially third-party cookies. Trying to explain that to people, I have failed completely.
So here's an interesting thought. Sorry, Jono.
No, you go.
Throw this out there is, the websites, you have to opt into the cookies, but Google is now showing a warning when you set up in the EU about how they're using your data across all of their platforms, and you agree to that once and it's forever true. And you can delete your stuff. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Alphabet. but all of the Alphabet properties. And there's a lot of data there, and people aren't freaking out about that as much as they are about the third-party cookies. And that's kind of an interesting thing where people just trust Google, and perhaps too much.
Yeah, not so much in Europe. It's been interesting that Europe basically said, we don't really trust Google. Actually, we're going to make Google Analytics illegal almost in some countries because we don't fully understand where the data goes to and similar bits. As somebody who loves Google Analytics, it was a little bit of a shock when I went to a company and they went, yeah, we're not using Google Analytics because we value our users' privacy. And as a marketer, as somebody who wants to improve the user experience, I kind of want that data. It's strange that we compromise the user experience by having the data and versus the kind of the loss of the data to protect people's privacy. Go on, John.
There's been so much hyperbole from Google Analytics, GA4 in particular's competitors, about whether or not they're privacy friendly, and so much of the almost paranoia of organizations now around running GA is fueled by the marketing budget of their direct competitors. For the record, GA4 can be run in a perfectly privacy friendly way, as much as anything that records your visitor's behavior can, if you configure it properly and if you're respectful of consent modes, etc. The only bit that's slightly gray is in some cases your IP address might be logged and sent to the US. But if you're in the EU, there's protections around that as well. That's a big part of what GA4 did. So much of the fear is just engineered nonsense. All of this can be respectful. The problem that we have with this and every other tool is nobody in an organization has ever looked at it and said, truly, are we considering the user's permissions and consent? Are we asking questions about how storage works and where it goes and what it does and how it integrates? Nobody ever has, because there's never been any pressure to. And now suddenly there's a whole bunch of legislation. Everyone's panicking and GA's competitors are cleaning up because people are scared. But yeah, GA4 is great.
We differ on this, Jono, a little bit. I don't, well, I hate GA4 for other reasons, not privacy reasons, but I do think that what we're seeing come out of the most recent legal cases against Google is that they are not honestly depicting what they do with data and how they use data, and that they cannot be trusted. So they're telling us that they're not using our data, in a way that flies in the face of privacy. But how are they getting all this cohort data? Like, it's from Chrome. And it's from, what they know about people from their Google accounts. And they're aggregating and anonymizing, and thank you for that. But that's not fully removed from a privacy concern. Because if you have a group that's too small, and Google's trying to avoid the groups that are too small, but let's just say they screwed that up somehow, that's no longer very private, or at least not super private, not as private as some people would want, is all I guess I'll say.
Yeah, it's interesting that. I mean, I previously worked at a couple of companies that kind of looked at the amount of data that we had about our customers, both a Norwegian supermarket and a big takeaway company. And in both organizations, we looked at it and went, we've got a lot of data about our customers. And we actively reduced it. We actively kind of tried to figure out how to remove almost the amount of information we had about our customers to make sure that we respected people's privacy. I mean, we could use big data to kind of understand who was single, who was dating, who was a vegetarian, whose life had just changed, what was happening in their lives, and and all of that just from takeaway information. It's kind of terrifying what we could probably learn from their weekly shopping orders in the supermarket. So we had to be super, super careful about all of that information. Right. I think I've asked it about 6 times now. Schema, Jono, what is schema? Why is it important? And why is it this one thing that it's that hidden thing that really is really important for local? But I feel like a lot of businesses don't really understand it or know why it's kind of critical at the moment.
Sure. So schema is, let's see, you want a reliable and guaranteed way to be able to communicate to Google things about your opening hours and your product prices and your stock levels, but also the name of your company and which file you want to use as your logo, and the author of this blog post and where they went to university and what date that article was published on, and 1,000 other things like that. So schema is just a type of language that you include in your code that does that in a way that makes it much easier for Google and other systems, Facebook, LinkedIn, Bing, Yandex, WhatsApp, Outlook, etc., Twitter, TikTok, for all of these systems to be able to reliably consume and understand this kind of data. And there was a huge, there was a good spurt around 2011, 2013, and then again in 2018, 2019. If you get this right and you implement it, you can unlock a bunch of rich snippets, fancy treatments in the search results, star ratings, reviews, calorie counts and recipes, all sorts of other stuff. That's the surface level. Everyone does a bit of it. Most people do a bad job. Most people miss the opportunities. I think to the point you alluded to earlier about, will we still need this in a world of AI where machines can understand our content? I see the SEO industry is quite split on this, as are the teams at Google who work on this sort of stuff. I think we still need it. I think you can point something like ChatGPT at a web page and it can definitely say, this is a page about cupcakes and it looks like they're lemon cupcakes and it looks like you have 12 in stock. But some stuff it's going to miss, some stuff it's going to get wrong, some stuff it's going to hallucinate, because the web is inherently messy. Like your HTML code is a mess, your JavaScript is a mess, your website is a mess, everyone's website is, and it's not going to get it consistently perfect, which for this stuff to be useful, it has to. So I still think there is a place in website owners and managers explicitly declaring their data and managing their websites almost like a database for these kinds of systems. And yeah, sure, external systems and AI systems will still summarize web page content, but there is still value in the person who authored that page saying, of the 12 dates that are in this page, or the 6 people who are mentioned, this one is the author, and this one is the published date, and this one is the modified date, and that kind of level of detail, because Google can't infer that correctly 100% of the time.
No, fully get you. In fact, we find it hilarious that some of our meeting notes, we use AI to sort of summarize, and it gets things hilariously wrong on many, many occasions. And to be honest with you, I love it just for that purpose. The daily stand-up, when we go a little bit off topic and we talk about technical stuff, it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, my favorite example, not of this, but of something else is, you know, the classic Paris Hilton thing. Basically, Paris Hilton is this famous celebrity, but it's also the name of a hotel in Paris. And a lot of the time, people would never know what it actually is when you Google it, when other bits and pieces. Nowadays, whenever you Google Paris Hilton, it always comes up with the celebrity person, the influencer. But historically, it was always interesting that depending on the time of day or how you searched would almost depend on what set of results you've got. It's a bit like Apple and apples. You know, if you search for apples, it knows that you're actually searching for a fruit. If you search for apple, it'll always come up with the company. So yeah, schema for that is so important, but kind of understanding intent is absolutely critical. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that Google's got at the moment, where ChatGPT and AI is really starting to kind of come in. It's the understanding of intent that I will kind of enter something into Google or ChatGPT now, and it'll kind of come up with almost better results for me because it seems to have a better understanding of what I'm looking for and a simpler, kind of quicker answer. It is kind of terrifying for the publishers of the world who are saying that actually we've got content on our websites that's being summarized and outputted. And what's the risk there and what's the reward there?
I'll jump in here and say that totally agree with everything, but just adding on that I think that in the future, schema may be used more and more to disambiguate complex or unclear queries. And so Google will ignore some schema when it's not needed, when it's very clear what the intent is or what's meant. But even in some very specific instances, I've seen Google get confused. And this is an interesting side note that you guys probably wouldn't have witnessed, because I also do ASO, so optimizing for the App Store. I've seen entity understanding play in there, and there's not a schema component, but schema, I think, aids in entity understanding. And what I saw, someone came to me in their big internet radio kind of app, and they weren't ranking for the word podcast, even though they had a lot of podcasts. And what we did was we used the Cloud Language API or the Natural Language API to evaluate the apps that were ranking and them. And what had happened was the Natural Language API in their app description was understanding the word podcast as a work of art. And in the ones that were ranking, it was understanding the word podcast as a consumer good. And so all we had to do was reorganize sentences so that the entity was understood properly. The word podcast that we wanted to rank for was understood properly. So I think that schema may evolve to help sort out things like that. Because yes, a podcast could be a work of art, but even think about how language has evolved on the word podcast. That was a couple of years ago. Podcast used to be audio only. And now we've convinced people to look at our faces, like, like they care, but they do, or they don't, sometimes they do. So, and that's a weird evolution of language that Google has to recognize and automate, because you can't bake that in and say, oh, this word has changed meaning. You can't do that at the scale that Google would need to.
That's nice. I like that. Language is inherently fluid and evolves, right? And these systems need to evolve with it. That's cool.
Oh, completely. I have a 15-year-old daughter. I have no idea what she's talking about. Literally, there's a whole subset of language that she uses, and every so often I'm like, Sophie, that acronym that you've just used, what on earth does it mean? And did you just misspell it, or is that a whole new word, or is that the new way in which it's spelt? It's, as you say, language is totally fluid at the moment, and with TikTok and other kind of media outputs, it really is critical to kind of fully understand exactly what, where, and how we are talking about things. And yeah, I completely agree with that. And I mean, one of the things that we've kind of briefly touched on is voice search. Voice search is something which I have been a little bit critical of for the past since 2018. What year are we in now? 2024. So that's like eight. Yeah, about 5 years basically. I've been saying Google Voice or Google Search is pretty terrible, and every year everybody's sort of said, "Yeah, it's going to get better soon." And I think it really is about to now, because Google has kind of finally got onto the AI bandwagon in such a way that it has to improve rapidly, because otherwise it will die. Cindy, you're always telling me that I'm wrong.
On this especially, well, your reticence to embrace Google Voice, it doesn't work well for you, and I've seen witness of this. I wonder always if there's user error in the setup of your devices, but it perhaps might just not like your accent as well, because it is like trained probably better on American accents, so I might have more success. But I think it's a necessary evolution, because remember, Google's a huge business. They don't make decisions, they're less likely to make decisions for this next couple of weeks as they are looking at bigger picture next couple of years. And the future of search is a broader understanding of search that is not just surfacing information, but it's surfacing things in the Internet of Things. And so the example I use here is if I say, okay, assistant, and I'm not going to trigger anything. Okay, assistant, turn on my path lights. It has to know who I am. And if I have two sets of path lights or two houses, it has to know which house I'm at. And then it has to find the device and turn the right device on. And that's a search in Google's mind. Even if it's not surfacing a blue link, it's still a search. Same thing if I say I want to play, I don't know, the Eagles. Like, that's a difficult search, because it has to understand that I want play, like I want music perhaps, or a video, and that I don't want the sound of Eagles. I want a band, So those are searches that have to be disambiguated, just like anything else. And so Google knows that the more and more things get connected, it's going to have to work seamlessly. And I want everyone to pay attention to the idea that Bard launched with voice. And now in Gemini, there's still voice, and I think they're trying to enable Google Assistants to have an ongoing conversation that's a foundation of search, but helpful without clicking.
Yeah, I would like to believe you. But I am finding that my voice devices I'm still waiting for them just to get good enough that I can say, Google, turn off bedroom light. and it will actually figure out.
Sorry, it looks like the bedroom light isn't available right now.
It'll figure out where I am.
You've got a bulky setup. That's the problem, definitely. So there's a few challenges here that still need to be solved, right? They've already solved the first one. They solved adoption. Everyone has one of these things. That was the hard bit. The next challenge is the accuracy and the speed of the response. If it doesn't get it right and it doesn't feel conversational, it's always going to be frictiony. They are throwing so many teams and so much money at that. And obviously the AI component is part of the magic sauce there. And when you look at which teams Google is scaling down and which ones they're scaling up around this particular, it's really interesting. Like they've actually culled a huge amount of the assistant team because they were working on the heuristic side, and they've doubled down on what if we just put Bard in this as a kind of middleware, much more powerful. You solve for both of that.
I think they want that team to disperse it into all the other teams because they want it baked in everywhere.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. It's intermediary middleware even. The next bit is where it starts to get interesting, which is Cindy's point, which is voice is just another part of multimodal search. And you look at all the cool new stuff that's shipping. I can't remember her name, but the new head of search at Google. You look at all the recent features, all the recent Google I/Os, all the launch stuff. It's all about multimodal. It's search is not just typing in text into a box. It's uploading an image. It's clipping part of a video. It's circling something on my screen, and it's supplementing stuff with voice. Like voice search isn't a thing, but multimodal is absolutely a thing. And voice just wasn't quite there, but now it is.
Yep. I have always been saying basically that voice for a long time is almost like the input rather than the actual kind of something else. But what is crazy is the fact that this input is handled very differently to other inputs. So, for example, if I do say something or do a search and then I say, how tall is it? And then I say, what is, that conversational part of it absolutely is really, really cool. The fact that it kind of works like that. I mean, when I worked at the BBC, which was a long time ago, one of the strange things is the fact we got some really weird search results, which was like people trying to kind of have a conversation with the BBC search engine where the queries on their own didn't make any sense. But if you realize what they'd made the previous query and the query before that, it's strange that Google is almost training people that type of interaction kind of works. And if you do any search in Google at the moment, your next search, as you start to type it in, will kind of suggest something related to it. So, for instance, if you search for something related to Lucifer, the TV series, and you start typing T or Tom, it will come up with Tom Ellis rather than any other Tom on the planet. So it is kind of interesting that Google's already been doing this for quite a while, but it does feel like the voice part of it, it's kind of lacked that kind of development part of it almost. And I think Cindy's absolutely right that it is going to be so good. I know it's good at the moment, and I know I've probably broken my setup because I changed Wi-Fi providers, so I had to reset 22 different lights, and I had to do a lot of different weird things. And the fact that my partner has added me to her kind of account, so it doesn't know which bedroom I'm in, and all sorts of other weirdness. And yes, Cindy's piece of advice to rename my bedroom the dungeon doesn't seem like the best idea, but I am kind of thinking I need to kind of call it something like Gerry's bedroom or something. But yeah. Okay, what else have we got left to talk about? We've got so many kind of like topics at the moment. AI is something which is phenomenally powerful at the moment, and I think we've kind of covered lots of it, but there's so much more we could talk about. One of the key topics is basically, go on, Cindy.
Oh, well, I was just going to add on to what you guys were saying and add in the AI component, that I think that probably something that's not being said outright is, what MUM was about. What was it? Multitask unified model. Words that don't really mean much, but it was about combining things into a not a multimodal journey. It was multitask, but it's really about multimodal, I think. And journey, they use the word journey all over. And journey is important, I think, for minimizing compute power needed by any kind of AI in a voice response system. If they understand that, when you ask a question to a voice assistant, they can already anticipate the next couple of queries. That makes them faster and it reduces the friction. It's also very probably seems to be related to people also ask, because when you do voice queries now, it'll give you the answer you want, and then it'll read you like the most likely people also ask that you would have clicked on, and it will say people also ask, would you like to hear that answer too? And usually I say yes, because it's usually like, I'll ask, the example I give is like, how long can blue cheese stay in the refrigerator? And it'll be like, blah, 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 blah,
10 days.
Yeah. It'll give you the answer, but then it'll say, would you like to know the answer of how long can blue cheese stay in the refrigerator if it's unopened? It's like, yes, I do, because that makes a difference, apparently.
2 weeks.
It's a lot of my questions for my voice search at the moment are very much around how do I cook this in the air fryer? And the only problem is it gives me all the wrong temperatures. It gives me American temperatures rather than English temperatures. And that's so frustrating. My big prediction for the future, which I'm still optimistic it's kind of right, is that it's all going to be AR very soon. I think that the glasses that we're all wearing and the headsets and bits and pieces is kind of a thing that's happening. I did not predict the market penetration of the Apple thing, which when it kind of first came out, I was like, nobody's going to buy that. And now I know half a dozen people that have bought it. I'm totally confused by this almost. I do have a pair of sunglasses which acts like a screen. I do have a VR headset, the Meta Quest, which I love and play with quite regularly, sometimes with Jono when he's not dropping dogs. And yeah, what do you guys think about the future of AR and VR or XR?
Definitely silence. I think it's hard to disrupt this. This is very, very powerful and very, very useful. And anything that's going to go on my face is going to have to be an order of magnitude better than that across multiple categories. And that is super hard because we've spent, 15, nearly 20 years now optimizing this form factor. And it turns out actually it's super intuitive and works really well. I think it doesn't solve for everything, but the few cases where we've started to see headset type stuff provide immersive, disruptive, platform level opportunities, nobody's done anything with it. Like, you look at what the actual experience of the Apple headset looks like. It looks like Windows on a screen. It looks like they've just taken this interface and put it here. And yes, maybe that makes it marginally more interesting and immersive, but it's not fundamentally changing. It doesn't unlock new capabilities. It's not going to give us what's the film about the future telepaths with all the crimes of the kind of, not Independence Day. Wow, my brain's just gone. But it doesn't give us that kind of future tech set. Minority Report, yes. No, it's not that. And actually, it turns out that the phone is much better than anything in that ever was. And it's going to be really hard to disrupt that. But MetaQuest is cool.
VR is working for selling furniture and parts and things like that because it's through your phone and it uses the camera. And I think that's cool. But yeah, I think or is that AR? Wait, I got to get it right.
Yeah,
AR is augmented, which is see through the,
yeah.
AR is in the phone and VR is in glasses.
Well, some of the Apple stuff also does AR because you're getting a pass-through screen and then you're placing stuff into the real world. It's kind of layered, XR, mixed virtual reality. XR. That, I think, is a thing. Like, the idea that we experience more than just the analog world, definitely a thing. But I don't think necessarily AR or VR, as we think about them right now, they feel a bit basic still. But they're getting there in the same way voice search is.
Yeah, I wonder if where it's really going to be is more like, this is like way crazy. Don't quote me on this. But like, I think the headsets, I think Jono's right. The headsets are a really hard adoption thing. And I think it's going to need to be holograms. If people are going to use it, it's going to need to be projected or something, not in something on your face.
No, I disagree with you there. I think that people will be very happy to put on a pair of sunglasses just to do something in the same way that they pick up their phone when they're walking down the street. There'll be times when people are happy to put on a pair of glasses or have it built into their glasses. I see the future as basically having a lot more AR and XR and other bits like that in it, but it's going to be evolutionary rather than revolutionary. I think I'm hoping that I won't see anybody driving down the road with the Apple headset on, which we've all seen the memes of. But yeah,
we're so far from SEO.
I know, but I think it's really important, and I say this because of the fact that even when I showed you this in London, when I'm navigating around London, I use a augmented reality version of Google Maps to try and find myself around London because Google Maps sucks in high-rise buildings because the GPS just doesn't work, but it has this ability to recognize where we are through the camera, and so that works really, really well. So suddenly there's reasons and methods in which Google's kind of looking at the way in which AR and VR is able to be integrated into our lives. And this is the cool stuff. This is the stuff where I think to myself, this is where things is going to really, really change. And imagine you're going down the road and it kind of flashes up with that's a great coffee stop place that you like.
Yeah, I like that map utility. That's useful.
Yeah.
Something privacy trade-offs.
Yeah. What do you think that as we're looking through the camera, it's going to be recognizing things and tracking everything that we're seeing and doing? And
I mean, to configure it, you have to anchor it to your precise position and orientation in a way that Google Maps might get wrong otherwise. So absolutely. But I think more broadly, a lot of the privacy concerns are just a knee-jerk reaction to change, right? Like a lot of the trade-off, assuming that Google isn't lying to us constantly about usage and being actively evil, assuming maybe, a lot of the trade-offs are good. And it does require your data to power and provide these kinds of services. And actually, that's probably fine in aggregate, as long as I'm not being specifically targeted in a way that's unpleasant by an evil megacorp. So yeah, the question isn't privacy and tracking. The question is, do you think Google is inherently evil, or is it worth the trade-off for this stuff?
Well, and the converse of that is Google says it's not using personalized data, but it is using hyper-localized data, which is
yeah, and behavioral data and any demographic stuff that it might be able to infer. So yeah, as long as it's not personalized.
It seems like people at this house are searching for blue cheese a whole lot. Like...
yeah, yeah, you may also like.
Okay, so we've talked about pretty much everything now.
Wow.
Yeah, so what is your kind of like number one what's the word for recommendation for companies today that they should do to improve not just local but their digital marketing? I think we'll start with Cindy on this one, because I think we haven't got enough time to let Jono just talk.
The main thing I'm saying right now is check every query and see what the real result looks like, not just numbers, but look at a real result, and probably look on mobile if you're a local company, and do what's ranking. If it's videos, do videos. If it's blog posts, do blog posts. If it's TikTok, do TikTok. Whatever is ranking, do that, because that's fighting the easy fight, and don't just keep fighting the hard fight.
I think the important thing there is if you do a search and it's got Google local results, then use MiradorLocal to help you with enhancing your local listings.
That's what I meant to say.
Jono.
Good, sleek. Two things. One, for local in particular, do things that aren't conventionally considered SEO. So if you're a restaurant, train your chefs better, source better ingredients. Change your opening hours, adjust your pricing, get good reviews, build social proof, make sure that your venue is Instagrammable, etc. Do the kinds of things that creates the kind of brands and footprints that people on TikTok and in Google, etc. will want to search for and find and discover. Also specialize. I think if you're doing that well, it's hard to do that for everyone everywhere. And things like being the best chocolate vegan cupcake bakery in a small area will probably be much easier to compete in and win in than being yet another bakery in a metropolitan area. That's really hard. And Google will not reward, but like it's in Google's interest to match people without personalizing to those kinds of niche vendors based on proximity, availability, opening hours, pricing, reviews, reputation, etc. As one. Two is please, everybody, not just local, but stop producing content, stop blogging, stop writing or sourcing articles. And I don't like, yes, please put words on your website, but think about what and why and whose words and what opinions. Don't like whatever you think about as content marketing and blogging at the moment, stop doing that. And instead really take a step back and think, how do I use my website as a platform to tell engaging stories and convince people of interesting opinions and have opinions? And again, if you're going to be niche, if you're going to be the best vegan cupcake place in town, go all in on the vegan argument. Like have an opinion, differentiate, carve stuff out, have real humans with real names and real expertise write things that they're passionate about, wouldn't put their name and expertise against it. But please stop blogging and doing that kind of SEO content thing. Like the days are gone.
Fantastic. Okay, where can we find you? Jono, where can we find you online?
I'm right here. Oh, you mean generally outside of this context?
If someone wants to search for Jono,
Yeah, Google me.
Google you. Okay. Cindy.
Yeah, you can Google me, but I hang out on Twitter like way too much. So go there.
Yeah.
My name is Suzix, SUZZICKS.
Perfect. I like the fact nobody calls it X. I like the fact that nobody is ever going to rebrand Twitter to X, because that was the weirdest kind of like rebrand ever, and nobody has yet to kind of really want to start referring to it. It just makes it weird. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
Smart though. It's such a long play, isn't it? Like 20 years from now, it'd be part of a bigger network of stuff, and we'll all have forgotten that it was Twitter. He doesn't care.
I don't know. It's surprising how many people have sort of strong opinions. They've all left Twitter and then they've sort of crept back again. I mean, all the conversation started going over to what's the one that I saw you on recently, Cindy? Fred's. Yes. We all kind of like checked out Fred's, and then
Yeah, briefly.
Yeah, and we all checked out the one that the one that all of the others basically. We are trying them all. I don't think that Twitter's going to die, but I do think that it's going to change. It's one of those things that, you know, everything always changes. Like Google. Brilliant. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time, and we will
Gerry.
get this out soon. If you want to hear more from local experts, along with Natalia and myself, then please like and subscribe, or visit us on MiradorLocal.com/local lift to find out more.